particular race though was unique amongst any race I've ever done. It was like a 7-hour cyclocross race. I mean, it wasn't unique because I've done a lot of cyclocross races, but for this particular genre, gravel, I don't think we've seen anything like it before. So, line choice was super important. You could be like 6 inches to the left or the right and putting out 200 more watts to go the same speed. So, there's people they're like, why wasn't I there in the front group? And then I asked myself the question, I'm like, why was I there in the front group? And the answer is, I made really good tactical decisions to be in the right place at the right time. I made the splits. I put out effort when I had to, and I didn't put out effort when I didn't need to. And I kind of gutted it out in the end because I think everybody was hurting out there, and I was hurting really bad. But I got a strong mental game. So
tell me about your disorganization.
Well, I got to work on my work-life balance. That's the main thing, because I was like working until stuff was broken. I'm like working until like 10:30, and I'm like, I gotta hit the road at noon. I gotta leave at noon, otherwise I'm gonna miss my flight. And I still had to do an opener ride because I'm gonna be terrible if I. So I did 18 minutes, my pre-race workout, which is about 45 minutes short of like my shortest normal opener. My bike didn't fit in the small box, and by the time I put it in the big box, I was on the razor's edge of making my flight, and also almost out of gas the whole time. And I get to check-in counter like 5 minutes after the cutoff. It was exactly one flight that I could still catch. I got into Stillwater at 1:40. I was asleep by 2, and then I was up at asleep. Then I built my bike, and then of course it was pissing down rain and like 45 degrees, and I was 7 kilometers away from the start in my hotel. And my grand plan was I'll just ride my bike to the start, which would have been pretty horrendous. I would have been like soaking wet and cold like an hour before the start because I still hadn't picked up my number. Hitched a ride with the guys who were driving there in their truck. Managed to throw my bike in the back of their truck, and they were actually friends of Grant. Like somehow they didn't know me, I didn't know them. But later, after the race, my teammate Grant was talking to them like, "Hey, you know this guy." So I don't remember their names, but they were very nice. Got to the start. They were calling up famous people at the start. I did not get a call up. So I did the old barrier hop trick and snuck in the 3rd row back. Because when there's like 1,500 people, it's kind of important to not be at the back, especially when you hit the dirty, muddy section and people are like flying sideways. Connected with some old friends. Danny Summerhill was there, who I haven't talked to in like 10 years. And like, we were in the break together, I'm like, hey, Danny. He's like, oh, hey. I hadn't talked to him forever. So that was fun. He had a bad mechanical. He was really strong. He would have factored in the finale for sure. He has really good cyclocross skills. He actually made that decisive split happen. There was one section that I think wound up being like a prelude to that decisive split. It was like there was a closed bridge that had like chunks of like broken up concrete blocking both ends, and so it was like a cyclocross dismount, jump back on the bike, ride across, dismount, climb back over, jump back on the bike. And after that, like I was like leading, I was at the front. It was like me and Peter and Danny, like at that point. And then we hit this decisive double track, and Danny punched it, and I managed to kind of catch back on the descent on the other side. And then it was like a group of like 5 of us. Just kind of happy to be there at that point. And then I kept expecting, I'm like, oh, there's got to be a lot of chase behind. But apparently it had completely blown up behind. There was I was surprised how much it blew up. And like, after I took a moment to take a breath and look back, it's like, there was nobody. Mile 50, we had already shed Danny. Danny had a mechanical, like, right before then, like he lost his rear derailleur. So we were like kind of at a gentleman's agreement coming into the feed. We're like, okay, everybody take your time. We're not gonna try to like blitz through this feed zone because this was literally, you had one feed zone on the whole course. So it's like, get your bike sorted out, get your feed sorted out. So I got 3 fresh bottles. And we kind of chilled for a little bit after that because we saw we had just had a massive gap. We had like minutes already, like multiple minutes on the next chase. Probably stayed cohesive until I think it's probably around mile 60 or 65. And there was a section, it was like kind of a long uphill drag. And there was like actually a giant gully through the center of it, and it was kind of a forced hike-a-bike. You couldn't ride the whole thing, and so somehow I was in second through that, and I saw some pictures, and like, you know, Strickland was already way gapped off, Payson was pretty gapped, and I was kind of right there with Peter, and you know, we got through that, did a little run, jumped back on the bikes. And there was this grass on the top, maybe like 500 meters of grass. And I'm like, okay, I'm here. It's just me and Peter, you know, let's go. And then Peter accelerated really hard on the flats, and I literally got dropped on that flat section. So he had great legs. I was, earlier than this, I was dangling on multiple climbs. And by dangling, I mean I was completely dropped and having to chase back on. That move basically shredded our group from 4 guys working together to like every man for themselves. Payson actually came over the top of me, and I couldn't hold his wheel, and then he got up to Peter for like a minute, and then Peter dropped him. And so then it was like, and then I almost caught back. I was like, oh, I was dying, like so close to these guys, like less than 10 seconds, probably for like, I don't know, a good like 5 or 10 minutes, like just maybe 5 minutes. But I'm like, oh, okay, they came back together. I expected when they came together that there was going to be like a little bit of slowing, because a lot of times, like when groups coalesce, there's like a renegotiation about what's going to happen as far as working. And like, I was thinking, oh, maybe, you know, Payson's going to recover for a second. And now Peter's going to be like, I'm not going to work as hard because Payson's on my wheel. But instead, Peter like accelerated again and dropped Payson, and so I couldn't quite catch them. So then it was like Peter ahead, Payson and myself all separate. And so I was running third for a while, and then Colin caught me and then dropped me. But he didn't drop me that bad, kind of kept him in sight for a long time. And then there was this like creek crossing that like literally was like waist deep because there was so much rain, and like sort of like everybody was like washing their bike in this thing as they're crossing, like to get, the mud was starting to, it stopped raining, and so the mud was turning from like kind of soupy to like peanut buttery. It was really starting to stick to bikes. All stuff with clearance was crucial, but more than anything, it was just like dependability, it seemed, on components maybe. I mean, Danny was running some fancy ceramic rear derailleur, and that thing ripped off. I had a questionable gear decision myself that I'd forgotten that SRAM red cassettes don't have, they're machined from a solid piece of aluminum, so there's no place for the mud to push through. So I had a lot of chain skipping problems in the back of my cassette. It seemed like probably, I mean, I've personally witnessed like everybody had some sort of mechanical problem. You know, I think I made reliable equipment choices, and I didn't abuse my equipment. You know, I had some chain suck several times, and I was able to back out of that before it became a problem. Here's where it gets really weird. So go through that creek crossing, and then like maybe like 5 miles later, around the 85-mile mark, there was this one road we were on that like literally it was just you couldn't ride it because the mud was such that sticks to your wheel, packs up in your fork, and you can't ride. And then you pick your bike up. You can't push your bike because the wheels don't move.
But your bike has 20 pounds of mud on it. Right.
So this is where it got kind of weird. And it's where I made some good decisions. I'm starting to see Colin up the road, and he's like having problems. I get off my bike, pick it up, the thing weighs a ton, and I just keep moving though. You know, that's the thing with cyclocross, like you just have to, you never want to stop your forward motion. I'm shouldering the bike, I'm like spinning my wheel, I'm clawing mud off my bike as I'm hiking with it. to like, you know, reduce the weight and everything. And I see Colin. Colin is like up on the grassy embankment on the side of the road, stopped, like cleaning his bike. And then I see Peter, and Peter is stopped, like cleaning his bike. So all of a sudden, I've like walked past both of these guys. I'm in second place. Then finally, you could kind of get back on your bike and ride for a bit. And then there was this like super sketchy, rutted downhill, and that's where I crashed. I was still going pretty fast. Then Colin comes up to me and like, he must have got a second wind, but we worked together for maybe like 5K, and then he put it in a dig on a climb and dropped me. But that was actually good motivation because I held him maybe at like 30 seconds for a long time. You know, maybe over the next like 10 kilometers, he was not that far ahead. So it like kind of helped my pacing. Peter wasn't coming back up because apparently he like couldn't use a lot of his gear, so he's have to baby it. You know, pacing was like 10 minutes up. Usually when you put yourself through something this hard, like all you're thinking about is the finish. Unless you're winning, okay, maybe you get a little extra. If you're winning the race, you know, you got that whole thing to look forward to. I mean, third place is great. I mean, it's awesome. Yeah, it was pretty festive. You know, the promoter, this guy, Bobby Wintle, he's just got, it seems, an unbounded amount of energy there. So he's super excited. It makes you feel like really pumped. So there was that whole scene. And then there was like lots of photographers, many people shooting video with like high quality cameras, you know, so like everybody's into the gravel thing. But somebody handed me a beer, so I drank a beer and then realized I needed to get back to my hotel. Otherwise I was going to freeze to death.